I'm back. Well, what have we got today? It's the Headrush MX5. Well, as some of you might know, I've done lots and lots of reviews on effects pedals and simulators and this sort of thing, basically, all the way from AxeFX 2, AxeFX 3, oh, you name it, Line 6, every brand, Roland, Boss, you name them. I've been through the lot, except this brand, Headrush. Well, why haven't I been through this brand? Well, there's a very good reason. And that reason is that when the bigger pedal first came out, I happened to be in America and I went into a guitar centre, waiting to play around a bit. I played around a lot with it. And it sounded to me like, well, like a cat screaming in a bag. Yeah, it was very, very toppy and sounded nothing like what I expected it to sound like. So, needless to say, I didn't come back to England and I didn't buy one. And I decided there and then that, well, these guys have got it wrong. And there's another reason too. Well, who remembers the 11 rack? Oh, you've got one? Oh, never mind. Scarily, I had one too. And it was so good they had to throw in Pro Tools, or Pro Fools as I often call them, actually to make it work. Well, not to make it work, but to try and do something to get the sales out there, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong, but the one I bought sounded really not good. So based on that and based on the later Headrush floor pedal, I never did go back. And, you know, I think the 11 boys sold out to this company or something like that. I don't really know and I don't really care about who bought who and what, all that stuff. But my experience with the brand wasn't that great. And I had to buy the stuff just like you do, as I bought this one. It's not a gift, no. So those are the reasons I never went back. Well, why have I gone back now? That's a good question. Well, the way I look at it, they deserve another chance, don't they? So, yeah, it's down there. I bought one, and £430, give or take, by the way. That's the UK price. I don't know how much they are in America, but I could guess probably $399 might be a good idea. And you can see there's a massive discrepancy in price in the UK and anywhere east, except China. Yeah, anyway. So, first things first, what we're going to do is get down to this, have a really good look inside, because this is purportedly a quad-core processor that is the same one that's fitted into the top-end, you know, pedal. Now, luckily for you, I've had this all apart already, and I'm not going to go down through all the usual watch me screw some screws off type of thing. That gets a bit boring after a while. But I have actually taken shots here of the insides of this unit, and we're going to sit and talk about them before we move on. Once we get past that, that's interesting in its own right, by the way. You won't find this information anywhere else. Once we get past that, you'll find that the unit is different than you might have thought for a number of reasons. Well, first of all, as you can see, here's a shot from just looking down from above, and you can see that huge, massive heatsink on the right-hand side there. And that's something to really look at and think to yourself, oh my God, this has got a really powerful processor in it. Well, I suppose in its own right it's got a powerful processor, but we'll look a bit closer. You can see the overall design of the thing is sort of like one board, one big fat board, and above another board, let's put it that way. And the another board's got the screen on it, which I didn't bother photograph because it's the back of a screen and a few drivers. But the important thing about that image that's on there is that that processor heatsink. And maybe take a look at the other components there, because you can see They're pretty much all surface mounted, and so are the sockets and things like that. So if you ever do get any problems with this, well, it might not be too easy to fix. And certainly when we take that heatsink off, well, you can make your own mind up. That's coming up, well, any time now. Well, I did include another angle where you can see more of the back of the unit as well as the PCB. And, you know, you can see what's going on there, how well it's made, approximately. It's a good indication of the product. And, you know, that bottom board that fits over what you're looking at, that red part of the case, that's all made of plastic, by the way. The thing to note are those sockets, the ones that are stuck on the board. And, yeah, well, them are the things that are going to wear, if anything will. And them are the things that you'll be going and trying to repair if you get any problems, I think, in general. Okay, well, here's a closer view of the onboard chips that we see and the capacitors and that sort of stuff. Again, it's pretty crowded board actually, but the board itself looks nice quality. If the tracks are a little bit thin in places, well, they are, aren't they? But they would be, because on this type of product you're not going to have massive current flowing over that board. And here's a couple of chips that I've sort of found while I was scanning around the unit. I don't really know what them are, and I didn't bother going chasing them. They were just ancillary chips that were sitting there. There's one, and there's another one. This one's an AKM, an AK4621EF. I could have gone and looked at it, but you can see they're all surface mount, and that was the point of photographing them, really. There's another one, a JRC4580D, looks like. Common chip. Well, at least it is on this system. By the way, there's also a battery in this unit to retain what you've got as settings, I guess. It's a CR1220 and it's a 3-volt battery. And I just wonder if you lose everything if you take the battery out. That's a good question nobody's answered. Well, nobody's even asked, have they? Now then, when you get down close to this heatsink, trust me, it's huge. And it makes you think that the processor underneath here is going to be the size of that heatsink. Well, a lot of them are. But I'm afraid in this case, well, it's not the case. So when I removed heat shield, first thing I did was turn it over and have a look, you know, to see it for the contact area for the processor. And that little square in the middle that you see now, well, that's actually the size of the processor, which makes that heat shield look a little bit, well, sad. But before we really get down to the processor, you can see there on screen now, inside the surround that covers the processor and its support chips, you can see there's a few more chips there. They're probably sort of memory related. Well, they look memory related to me, that type of thing, you know. And just at the top there, you can see half of the processor. It's still got all the gunk on it that they tend to put on them. But I've got some replacement gunk, so I'm not too worried about cleaning that off. Scarily, there's the processor. Now, it's still got its gunk on, but you can see that in reality, it's not actually that big, is it? There's a few more of those chips that reside within that surround, within that heat shield surround area. They're all surface mount, and I just thought you'd like to see them. And this is a chip from a company called Bywin. It's a NAND chip, so there it is, once again, very close to the processor and underneath the heat shield. And there you go, my friends, for the very first time anybody's even mentioned what chip's inside this, other than saying, oh, it's a quad processor. That's all they ever talk about, and I think that's quite funny how they only do that. In any case, in reality, it's a ROC chip, an RK3288. It's a DSP, it's a quad-core DSP. But interestingly, this was actually invented originally by ARM. Well, you've never heard of ARM? Well, you might have. ARM is the company that actually sort of mutated from Acorn Computers all them years ago, and ARM processors carried on after the demise of all that, and today are one of the world's leading processor developers, really. They're in everything, ARM processors, including this. So Rockchip RK3288 is, like I said, a sort of follow-on from the ARM Cortex A17. Now, there was a little bit of argy-bargy going on about whether it was the A17 or the A12 or the A14 or the this, that, or Tom or Dick or Harry. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is it's a quad-core ARM processor, and they can work, by the way, up to 1.8 gig, but is this one? Well, it doesn't really tell you, does it? And my guess is it isn't. Now, there is a little section down below in the text. You always need, when you're watching these reviews, to go down below in the text, because I always go and find little snippets of different things, you know, for people to go and look at. And there is a whole page all about the ARM processor, this particular series, and Rockchip and all that sort of stuff. And you can go and read it for yourself, because nobody else is going to tell you about any of it. They all want you to just think, oh, isn't it good, and that's it. Well, it's only good as long as it works, isn't it? So don't forget to go down there and have a really good look at the information that I've spent oodles of time finding for you. Yes, you. Now there's an overall shot of the entire heat shield housing. It sort of sits underneath the heat shield, and you can see just how packed that is with NAND, other memory, ancillary chips, and so on and so forth, and they're all under that shroud, so to speak. And it's a good indication of how small the processor is. I would rate the processor at being about, well, probably 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch, or 20mm by 20mm, depending where you come from. Now, I did also photograph some other stuff, and these are the switches that you press, that you see when you're looking at this thing from above. Now, those switches are pretty good switches. They're not like some of the cheap and nasty things that are sitting out there in a lot of products. So I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that these switches are pretty cool. Lastly, when you first take the back off, that's what you see. You see this board with its sort of metallized covering, and that board, underneath that board, is what you've just seen. Yeah, so that's how they go together. It's all pretty good. And as I say, the plastic bit on the bottom, the red bit that you will see later, is plastic, and not that it matters really. The unit's actually quite robust. I also like to see these type of, well, call them screws, that hold the bottom red bit of the case together. They're like Allen keys, really. Quite nice. They look right for the unit from above, you know. Don't have bits sticking up. It's all sort of flat when they've been fitted. Very nice. Okay, well, that's enough about the inside. I have got one little note here that I took when I was doing some research into it. The RK3288 is also fitted to television boxes. You couldn't make this up, could you? No, it's fitted to TV boxes, and it was invented, by the way, in 2014. Yeah, and it was renamed, actually, I don't know whether I got it right earlier, it was renamed from an A12 to an A17 because of some confusion between different people. It's a quad-core ARM Mali T760, it says here MP4. There it is. So now you know. I could, of course, talk for hours about chips and fish as well, actually. But there's no real point other than getting you to have a look at the quality and, you know, some of the components of what the unit's made from. After all, it is that you're buying, isn't it? Yeah, the stuff you can touch is what you're buying. And if they fitted rubbish inside, well, that's what you're buying, rubbish. And that's one of the reasons why you should always, but always look inside anything you buy. I've seen some right rubbish, and the price doesn't matter. I saw an amp recently at £1,400 that I wouldn't, well, if it was food, I wouldn't give it to a dog. But enough about that. It's all about this. Few things that are strange on this unit, and one of the first things that you would notice if you buy one is you'll get your laptop out or you'll get your phone out and go to the headrushfx.com site to load up your application, you know, so you can edit it. There isn't one. No, there's no app. And end of story. Thanks very much. It makes a change, a refreshing change if you want the truth. So what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in closer. We can take a quick look at it. It's not rocket science, this one, because everything you can do is on the screen and you can just touch the screen to do almost anything. As always, I always print a manual out. And I think it makes sense, doesn't it? It's page after page here. Not that you really need it unless you look for things that aren't shown elsewhere. And one of the things that isn't shown elsewhere is the external pedal and setting that up. Oh, there's lots that talk about it, but I didn't see anybody set it up. Well, I would have set it up, but mine hasn't arrived in time. It's not coming until Tuesday or Wednesday, so I might review that at some other stage. So we're going to spend a few seconds looking around the back, a few seconds looking around the front. There's nothing at the front. Well, we're on the top and on that screen. Let's go. Okay, well, here we go. Let's get through it. Patent pending, by the way, that's the first thing. It's a Headrush MX5. We've got a guitar in usual socket. We've got an expression pedal in, that is. FX send and FX return, and by the way, I think if I'm right, you can have these in stereo. Yeah, we'll see later. We've got the output side of things. An exhaust up there says don't cover it. Well, you can see why with that big fat heatsink. On the outputs, we've got a left and right, mono or stereo. We've got headphones. We've got an aux in if you want to put some music in or something else. We've got a MIDI out and a MIDI in, and you can see that these little 2.5mm or maybe 3.5mm sockets, but they do supply the converter to turn them into standard MIDI ports, which I did like. There's a USB for updating the firmware, but don't go looking for the app. And there's the DC in, which is a 12 volt 3 amp, and it's positive center from what I can see from here. And bear in mind that 3 amp, most of those junky little power supplies that everybody buys for their boards probably won't power this at 3 amp. Lastly, and importantly, there's a very nice on and off switch, which is something that some people don't supply. It was good to see that one. Okay, well, this is what you see when you turn her on. Yeah, you get the screen, loads all up, and it's all good. The device hasn't shut down properly. What's it say? Would you like to restore the last state? Well, I'll say yes. I'm glad it did that. Then I can show you. I just turned it off, I think. Or the power went off or something. Importantly, it knows. So when it fires up, it does its thing. Now, one of the things about this, just right off, is if I turn this off, I haven't turned it off. If you notice, it doesn't turn off. It's really a sort of yes or no, do you want to shut this down? So it's not actually turning the power off as that knob. Okay, quick overall view. What you've got here is, first of all, the important display. This display is touch, as you've seen already, and that's the main I/O that you're going to be using all the time on this pedal. In its own way, it's good, but it might have its negatives as well, which we'll see later. We've got a main volume here. Again, as you can see, off it goes up to 11, in fact. Fancy that. They've been watching too many films. We've also got an encoder, this thing here. And at the moment it's just running through various bits and pieces that are in there, presets for want of a better word, but you can also press it to make a selection. We've got foot switch indicators, these three here, pretty boring, but they do change dependent on what you're doing. So, you know, if you're using it on stage, it's all good. The foot switches themselves we've already looked at, and these are pretty high quality switches for what they are, for the money that you're paying for the unit. So I'm happy to see them. And we've got an expression pedal, which by the way does actually bolt off when you pull it apart. It just lifts clearly off. You can assign different things to this, as we'll see later, but I'm not going to spend all day on it. By the way, when we were talking around the back up here with the FX send and return, they are stereo, as I suggested. Okay, well I've got this set up so that you don't actually see the Headrush wah pedal, or the pedal that's stuck on the end, call it what you will. But the fact is that most of the stuff's done from around this area. Take a look up the top here, we've got these three little dots, like three little pigs, isn't it? And we've got lots of things here that we can run through, such as delete a rig, edit a rig, discard the changes you've just made, hardware assign we'll come back to, global settings, and you can lock the screen from being changed and things like that. But what's important for now are the global settings. Have a look through them, and you just have to make sure that on the main out level, whether it's a line out or an amp out, and if you're sending it to your amp, flip that across to amp, and if you're not, well, leave it on the default, which is line out. Also noteworthy in here is the fact that the sample rate can be 44.1 kilohertz, it can be 48, or it can even be 96 kilohertz. And notice that nobody's telling you about any of that, or I haven't seen anybody telling you about that. You can have USB audio on or off if you're throwing it out to a door and things like that. And there's lots of other things in there, and we've also got another couple of screens which we can sort of whiz off through. I'm not going to spend long on it because there's no real point. Looper remaining time, which is interesting, it's 3 hours and 55 minutes, although do understand that you will not get 3 hours and 55 minutes. EQ's on, fancy that, global EQ's on. Here's the settings for all of that, and thanks very much, and you can just hit them three buttons and close the menu. Now, as you'll notice across the bottom here, we've got sort of these three buttons. Most important because without them you're doing nothing really when you're on the stage. And they can be set up into different modes, or they can, well, let's put it this way, they can be used to set the unit in different modes. That's how I'd describe it. First we've got a stomp mode. If you look down here you can just about see that. Now the stomp mode, it just corresponds to models, amps, cabs, effects in the signal chain. Well, in any case, I'm not going to spend all day on these stomp rigs and modes and all the rest of it because, well, it's not really a training video. On some of them I've gone to great depths, but on this one I don't think I will. I could sit here all day faffing around. There's no real point in that. But the modes you can have is the stomp mode, which is, like I said, to load the next rig, you can do this or do that. The second one is a rig mode, which these foot switches 1 to 3 correspond to rigs you've got previously saved. You press a foot switch and it loads a rig. You can see them there, it says previous rig, next rig, a black op, whatever that is. Yeah, turns it on and off, as you saw. You've also got a hybrid mode. The first foot switch can be assigned to activate or deactivate a model or to select a scene in the currently selected rig. In any case, 5 minutes with the modes and you'll be on it. It's not really that complex. Now, even just sitting here, just touching this stuff, it's all pretty straightforward. If you think about it, you can see on screen yourself, there's an amp, there's a cab. We've got a volume A, and we've got any other one on there? No, I don't think we have. So that's that pedal over there set up to volume A. We've got compression, stereo doubler, black ops, whatever that is, and 11 reverb, never mind, and a number of empty slots. We've got the tails, if you know what tails are, you know, the bit that goes dun dun dun. Something like that. When you've got it turned on and you switch to another sound. We can look at the out, we can look at the in. We've got these menus at the top, we can save. This one's called this. We can search. Loads and loads of different things. Look at all this stuff down the bottom. But if I wanted to look at that amp, all I need to do is to click it twice and I can see what it is. Who knows? It's got a cab link turned on. It is its settings. Yeah. How hard is it? So we can sort of change it around a bit. Oh, look, a tread plate modern. Yeah, rock and roll. Well, we'll check that later, won't we? So I'm going to leave you where it is and go back. Let's have a look at the cab. Click that twice. Again, you've got a load of presets. It's not really rocket science, and there's piles of them, and you can add your own, I believe. I'm not going to spend time on that either. I couldn't care less myself. I've got a real speaker cab, but you might not have. Anyway, there it is. I'm not going to choose them. We can choose different mics as well, and that will also affect the tone. And also, whether it's on or off axis and things like that, whether you've got amp gain here or that, you get the idea. There's a lot of things you can change. All nice and easy. If I wanted to add something, say, there, it's an empty slot. Well, what do I want to add? Well, I might want to add any one of these. And you can sort of whip down. You can see how finicky it can be, because every time you want to move, you're getting these things. Personally, I think the software's a little bit handier than faffing around on a screen like this. But that's just a personal view. But let's imagine we wanted to put in some modulation. So you click that, and then we've got another pile down here. There's no shortage of effects, and I think that's a good thing. Let's imagine we want a chorus. Well, which chorus do we want? Well, again, you've got a few of them to go at here. Well, say MN Light, and there it is. Chorus MN Light. Now you can see that one that we've inserted there. None of these knobs will control that one by default. You've got to go and apply that. To be honest, I'm not going to faff around doing that. It's just a question of showing you how easy it is to do something. If we go and have a look at Grey Comp, come on, there it is. So you can get at it, you can change its parameters, all pretty easy. You see that? You have to sort of, I don't know whether you hold it down or what. It's a bit finicky, and that's the thing that I don't like about it. It's a bit awkward. There are a lot of other things you can do with this unit, including a thing called scenes. The scene feature allows you to turn multiple modes on or off for each separate rig, as well as select different change modes presets. When you press the foot switch assigned to that scene, all models included in that scene will turn on or off. So if you think about it, it's like turning on or off multiple pedals. It's the simplest answer of the way I'd describe it. It's a great way to create multiple tones in the same rig. For instance, you might want a particular reverb model to be on any time a particular distortion is on. And when it isn't, it doesn't come on. It's as simple as that, really. I can sit here showing it, but I'm not going to. Then you've got the expression pedal. If we move along a little bit further, that one down there. Well, the thing about that, you can assign it to almost anything. You name it. And you can turn it on and off and assign that external one when you've got one. And by the way, the external one costs pretty big money for what it is, particularly in the UK. I think I paid at least £100 for, well, what's really just a pedal. It's made out of a bit of metal. I've seen them as cheap as sort of 30 quid, you know, but not the one for this. They also have a thing called set lists. You can use these set lists to organise rigs. A set list is a saved collection of rigs, which you can save and recall at a later time. If you only ever need some of your rigs for a performance, it's a way of sorting out the men from the boys, if you get me. So you can include the rigs for that particular session that you need and disregard the rest. They don't get shown. Very useful feature. There's also a hands-free mode that lets you adjust any of the settings on models by using the foot switches and expression pedals, things like that. You've got a tuner tempo, and if you hold that down you'll just get the tuner, or you should do. There it is. You've seen a tuner before, come on. No, not a tuner fish. Now moving on to the looper, they do say in the manual that it can hold up to 20 minutes of audio at a time across a maximum of 50 layers. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, but it does say the first layer of your loop can be up to 5 minutes long. So there are limitations, and my guess is the more you record the less that you get, but I could be wrong on that. I'm not going to sit here all day faffing around with it, let's put it that way. I don't personally use loopers, but from what I can see of it, it looks okay, it looks reasonable. What more can you ask for? Now do remember those MIDI settings, there's lots of them. They're under global settings, and there's lots you can change in there, and I don't think you'll be really stuck for much regarding MIDI. Well, that is, unless you lose those converters that it's supplied with. One of the useful things about having this USB is if you do connect it to a PC, you can actually do a backup of the whole thing, and the manual harps on and recommends that so that you've got a sort of fresh backup. Now I have seen units before, I haven't tested this one, but just bear this in mind, won't you? I have seen units before where once you start playing around with things like this and then you go to back it up, well, you back it up as it is, but it's been played around with, but you can never really get back to the original factory settings. I saw that on a unit. It took about 3 months before they actually made it so you could actually get back to the original factory settings, believe that or not. I don't think that's the case with this one, but who knows. And of course that USB is also great for updating the firmware, which yeah, this one might be up to date or out of date, who knows. Interestingly, as you power up, you can't actually see which version of firmware is in the unit. And I couldn't really find anywhere where it does tell you. I think you've got to connect it up to something else and then run a program, and thanks very much. All seems hard work, that does. Well, I'm not going to spend any more time on it. You get the idea of it, and you know, looking at different bits, we can do that all day. But it's just a question of clicking the bits and having a go. You haven't really got that much to lose if you get it all wrong. You can actually go back into this, go to global settings. Oops, I didn't want that. So you saw that I went to global settings, but this came up, and that's part of the problem of using this unit as it is. If I hit that and go back again, you can see that the lock screen is right next to it. And listen, my fingers aren't that big. It's really a question, in my opinion, that this screen isn't really big enough. And as you get a smaller and smaller screen, it's a bit like using an Apple phone. They can get quite difficult, see. They can get quite difficult to choose the right one. You have to be very, very selective, and that slows things down. That's just one of the things that I see, that if this was something I was using every day, it would annoy me. Honestly, it would. I'd really prefer to have the application that stops all this rubbish going on. It's a good idea, but listen, if you start cutting corners to a small screen, which this isn't the 7-inch screen that's on the big unit, then you're going to get these little problems coming up, and I just wanted to highlight that. Rather than spending all day, you know, going through and turning this quick review into a tutorial, I didn't really want to do that this time. So that's some of the things that I found with it. Some's good, some's bad, some's indifferent. For £430, it's reasonable. But of course, it's how it sounds that matters, isn't it? Well, that wasn't too bad, was it? Well, it depends what you're used to and what you wanted to see. Well, if you just wanted to see people showing you how to use it, please go elsewhere and have a look. It's all over the internet. I don't care about any of that stuff. And neither would you if you got one sitting in front of you, because it's sitting in front of you and not them. I'm more interested in, you know, is it good hardware? Is it easy to use? Well, it's relatively easy to use, I would say. But you can get that problem that I've just showed you, where the screen's a little tiny thing. And yeah, it should have been a 7-inch screen. This would have been awesome. But it isn't. It's a much smaller screen. I would say that 1, 2, 3. It's probably a 4-inch screen from what I can see. But there you go. Who knows? I'm not going to sit measuring it, and I couldn't care to go and read the book. Could you? Of course not. Okay, so let's sum up where we're at, and then we're going to go and play a few things on it. Just one of the things I didn't cover, and I always like to cover, is where the thing's made, by the way. And this one's made in Taiwan. Usually a pretty good place to get things made, if you want the truth. I remember standing next to Ulysses back in 1985 and waiting at the bank to get my $200 a day. Yeah, Ulysses were there then. So Taiwan is, from my book, a pretty good place to go. There are far worse places than that. But unfortunately, if we're not careful, pretty soon Taiwan will be owned by China. Let's hope not. Taiwan is a really nice place and really nice people, and it doesn't really equate to what it could become. Think of Hong Kong. Anyway, moving on, we've got CE approvals, FCC approvals, we've got ROSH compliance, we've got some Canadian one and Australian one on here. But interesting, when you look at this, it's got an EU address called In Music Germany, somewhere in Germany, where they're probably the importers or distributors or something like that. Maybe they're even people that make it, who knows. But it ain't made in Germany, of course. So there it is, that's round the back. Made in Taiwan, love to see that. Well, we're on paperwork that you get with it. This one is a Celestion digital download of IRs from Celestion. Let me cover that up. And there it is. You can go and download them, but to tell you the truth, I think these are the same ones that you give everybody to download. Yeah, and if they're not, well, my apologies for that, but I think they're pretty much similar. I just wanted a quick look inside this little bit here. This says important safety instructions and warranty. You get 1 year, that's it. Thanks very much. And the warranty's with them guys in Germany, from what I can see here. What is it? In Music brands. In Music warrants the original purchaser that Headrush products are free from defects in material and workmanship under normal use and service for the period commencing the dated purchase from an authorised Headrush dealer and continuing for the following period of time after that date for 1 year. So you get 1 year. And there's all the usual gumph about how they get out of warranties and things like that. Now, I'm not going to zoom in on this one, but if you can just about see the screen there, you can see everything's empty. It's an important aspect that just happened, basically. You can see everything's empty, and the reason for that is I just pulled the wire out of this previously. When I put it back in, it said, oh, do you want to restore from this, or do you want to do that? And I said, well, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to keep it as it was, so to speak, as it was, just like you'd have with a Roland or any of the others. So I kept it as it was. I don't want to restore, type of thing. And that's what you get. It's worth noting that if I can do it, anybody can do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an idiot, am I? Don't answer that. Oh, I'm back. Seem to have got it fixed. It's easy enough, but it's like everything else. Yeah. I'd have thought they'd been just reset this and up they come. No. You have to go faffing. In any case, it wasn't difficult. The point is, let's look at the summing up section, and I'll just talk about good and bad points at random as I remember them. Getting older gets harder. Well, I like the price. 430 quid's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. It's very well made. It's made in Taiwan. I like that too. I don't like that there's no application. I think that's a bit of a pain, if you want the truth. And the reason it's a pain is the second reason why it's a pain. The first one is there isn't an app, and the second one is the size of this screen here is too small. Unless you're a 3-year-old, then your fingers will be the right size. If you're not a 3-year-old, oh, you're one of these guys with big fat fingers. There's a lot of them guys around. Well, you might struggle a bit on this screen. My fingers are not particularly big, but you saw yourself that it's so easy to have the wrong thing come up, and that slows everything down. There's no proper flow as long as that screen's as small as that. Now, if they'd had the 7-inch screen that's on the other device or devices that they make, that would have been another story. But this sort of 4-inch or so screen, give or take, it just isn't big enough. I would have also liked to had proper Midi ports. I don't like these little Midi ports, although they are available on other devices, as you'll see in a moment. There are 11 sockets, if you will, that we can put different things into, but that includes the amp and the speaker. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of them. That's not really that many. You can change them around and do all the stuff that you can imagine, but 11 isn't that many, especially when I go and reach over here. It's a little device called a GT1000 core. I think this has got either 22 or 24 from my memory, my recollection of this. And the processor in this certainly is no inferior job compared to that, I'll tell you that now. And this one's made in Malaysia. So it's made elsewhere, but that's more powerful than this by a long way. And I can hear you now, oh, that costs more money. Well, it does, but that's got software with it, and yeah, it's got these 24 points or 22 points, and this has got its 11, and this has got a tiny screen. I could go on. That's not perfect, but neither is this. So for the money, it's worth looking at, but please do look at it very carefully. Don't just go and look at those sales videos that all call themselves reviews, because they're not. Go and look at those by all means, but step back and then come and have a look at this simple review here. I've no axe to grind, trust me. If it's brilliant, I tell you it's brilliant. It's got good points and bad points, and that's how I'll leave it. So how would I score this out of 10? I know that all the reviews I've seen all say it's 10 out of 10, and well, they would. They probably got it for free. But I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10, which means that, well, the device itself, in my opinion, is really well built. It lacks in the usability area in a number of ways that I've already covered. So it gets a 6 out of 10 for this one. You're going to hear it anyway, so you can make your own mind up about does it sound good or bad. I think that is important. Oh, that's why you're buying it, isn't it? But also the usability of a product like this is also very important too. And so is the longevity of it and the warranty and everything else. Now, taking all that into account, that's the score. Now, don't forget to check down below. Like I said, you might find other information or not, depends what I find. But it's always worth going and having a look around, and you know, that's what that's for down there. And don't forget, lastly, to check out other gear as well. And there's a lot of that. I've done recent reviews of that one there, of the Line 6 pod, lots of different ones. So go and check them out, you know, that's what it's there for. And if you think this one's most suited to you, well, then you'll probably give it a 10 out of 10 and you'll buy it, won't you? Me, well, we'll see. See, ask me in 6 months whether I've still got it. Ask me in 3 months. Oh, ask me in 2 weeks whether I've still got it. And that's it for now. Don't forget to visit www.TonyMckenzie.com, and there's lots of reviews. Lots of reviews on my channel too. It's all down in the text. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm going to do a bit of playing. Yeah, rock and roll. Pity I can't do the tracks online that I want to play, you know, my own music, because I then get copyright strikes against my own music, which is a bit ridiculous. But that's life. Till next time, get out of here.